Jules, how are you?
I'm
First episode.
great.
Season
First
5.
episode, and we all know.
Season 5. So I think we're on episode 66 right now. So
That sounds right. Yeah. But we have to cover our OG every episode of the first season. Come on.
Yeah, no, we got to talk about the old fashioned. But Jules, can I actually, before we get into that, can I tell you about something kind of fun I did over the break?
Please.
When we took a little break.
Yeah.
I should have brought this up in the last episode, but I want to bring it up here. So I was a guest on another podcast, which was kind of exciting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
The podcast is called Day Strider, The Time Traveler's Treat. Let me just tell you about this guy. So I met this guy. He reached out to us, Truman Pastworthy. He reached out to me after listening to the episode we did on the Irish coffee.
Ooh,
and he's like, hey, I love this podcast. I want to do an episode on, St. Patrick's Day, covering some Irish history. Would love to talk about the Irish I want to say old fashioned. Irish coffee.
You got old fashioned on the brain.
I do have old fashioned on the brain. The Irish coffee, and would love to interview you. So here's the thing that I'll tell you about this. If you are into the history section of this podcast, you'll dig his podcast, because this guy, Truman is on a quest for knowledge, especially the kind that's like fun and amazing, and he loves to tell stories. So you combine this stuff and you get this podcast called Day Strider. He talks about historical events, amazing discoveries, and special inventions, and he kind of brings it to life and surprises you with little tidbits of information that you really hadn't heard before. He publishes it every 21 days. And so each episode features a particular day in history. And then he kind of strides through this day tell you stories, great stories about what happened on this day. I actually truly enjoyed it. Like, I loved my conversation with him. We did 2 episodes, one on the history of the Irish coffee, and then one he went into a little bit more depth about, hey, who's Brad Sutton? What makes you tick?
Oh, nice.
And I gave a little shout out to you and how amazing you are. So.
Wow. We'll have to share it on the Instagram.
We will. And I genuinely can tell you, he is just a sweet guy, and it is an awesome podcast. So that's what I did. But today, what are we talking about? We're talking about an old fashioned, right?
We're talking about, the first episode of every season. We can't go without an old fashioned.
Truth.
And I will say, there are many, 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 many ways to make an old fashioned.
That's right.
And Brad, you're making an old fashioned version that I have to say I've never had before.
Yeah. Well, so old fashioned. If you remember from early episodes, episode 1, we talked about what old fashioned meant and how it got its name. And it was just people being frustrated with the fact that we had all these like liqueurs and stuff we started adding to cocktails. And they were like, can I just have a cocktail the old fashioned way, which is spirit, bitters, sugar, water. And that is it. Yep. And so you could literally make an old fashioned out of anything. And it is a very good chance that a gin old fashioned, specifically Holland gin, otherwise known as Genever, was one of the early old fashions that we had, as well as probably an Old Tom gin, because Old Tom gin is an old school gin and a very special kind of gin that we'll talk about in another episode, but likely an old fashioned that has been made before. I've got my own twist on this Old Tom old fashioned that is, in my opinion, delicious. I make it for other people who are like, holy crap, I didn't realize I could like a gin old fashioned. Yeah. So if you want to get crazy, today's the episode.
You're in for a treat. I myself love gin. We all know this by now. Brad and I, huge advocates for gin.
Yes.
But I will say, stick around for the recipe. Don't go anywhere, because you use a lot of interesting bitters. So it's almost kind of going back. One episode we talked about bitters. This is like the most perfect recipe if you want to learn more about bitters, because you can really explore them with your recipe. And that to me is something to where you can understand how two dashes of bitters, and you do another one with 4 dashes, and you can taste test the difference, right? I mean, an old fashioned is a great way to learn. And a gin old fashioned, I would argue, is an even better way to play with flavors, because especially if you're using maybe a neutral gin to play with the bitters, or you're wanting to explore different styles of gins, because there's such a broad category of gin, you can really start to understand, how these flavors work together and why, which is really exciting. And then, Brad, I throw everybody a curveball with this delicious, aggressive Fernet Old Fashioned.
Well, yeah, so it's got rye whiskey, right, as its primary player, but Fernet plays a strong
don't turn it
character.
off.
And hey, listen, don't get all nutsy, because remember, an old fashioned is spirit, bitters, sugar, and water. And
boom,
here we go.
Mic
We've got
drop.
Bingo. There you go.
Yeah.
So Fernet plays the role of bitters in this case. So just cool your jets.
And I will say, don't be scared to play with Fernet. Don't be scared to play with Amaro. And we will talk about that throughout the episode. Fernet is an Amaro. What is an Amaro? It's an Italian bitter liqueur. I will drive this home because I love the Amaro category. And we'll talk about it later, but just trust me on this. Allow Fernet into your life. And don't be scared to, get your toes a little wet in the water with Amaro. Okay?
Yeah. Yep. So then after that, we are going to get into, I took a bit of a curve today.
I liked it though, Brad.
Yeah, so I don't go into the history today. I go into your questions. So we have this Get Featured. And so the section of our Instagram page at the Art of Drinking podcast. And we have encouraged you in the past, and we're encouraging you now again to ask questions there. And this time we're actually paying attention to it, or I am. And so we're going to start bringing this stuff up. So the history, it's still going to be there. So don't worry about that. We're still going to talk about history in future episodes. But I wanted to just answer some of your questions today. And thank you for taking the time to write those questions out. And we're sorry it's taken us this long to get to them, but now we're on a roll. And so we'll start answering those questions. And then you get into the tips, right?
I do get into the tips. We're going to talk about Fernet, because trust me, you don't want to be scared of this delicious Amaro. But I will say, Brad, on the answering questions side, some may be listening and say, well, wait, I don't have an Instagram. I only have Facebook, or go to the artofdrinkingpodcast.com. We have an email section. Shoot us an email. Yeah. Trust me, we will see it. Brad will see it. And we are making it a goal with this new season to really answer your questions, because truth be told, Brad, that's why we're here. We're here for our listeners. So we want to make sure that we are talking and answering the questions that you really care about. So really and truly take it seriously, because we are, and we're going to answer them this season. So.
Hey, we're listening. Hey. And now we're going to drink. So let's go do that.
Yes, let's do it.
All
right, Brad. We know you know how to make a mean old fashioned, but I'm really excited to see you make this, because I feel like this is one that not a lot of people would run and make right away. So, show us what you got.
Yeah. This is actually one of my back pocket favorite drinks to pull out. And I love a good gin old fashioned. And in this case, I'm using Old Tom gin, which, we talked about at the top of the hour. And so we'll go into the history on what this is in another episode, because we do bring this gin back. But just so you know, you're like, well, what's Old Tom gin? Old Tom gin is it's a sweeter gin that was super popular in the 18th and 19th centuries during the gin craze in London. And it is like a cross between a London dry gin and a Genever. So for people who are new to gin, or who are just getting into gin, this is a great starter gin, because it's just not as in your face with juniper. And it's a silky, beautiful gin. So I'm using Heyman's here, which, I've grown to love over the years that I've been using Old Tom gins. There's a lot of great Old Tom gins out there. So Heyman's is the one that I kind of like. So what we're going to do is, I've got my glass here ready. So I'm going to take 2 ounces of the Heyman's, right? And I'm going to put that into my glass. I could put this into a mixing glass, Jules, and stir it before I put it into my rocks glass.
Sure.
I'm going to pour it over ice anyways. So I'm cool just making it in the glass over my
Yeah.
ice cube. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So 2 ounces of that. I'm also adding a little elderflower liqueur and just a 1/4 ounce of that. And that really adds a little something special
Yeah.
to the cocktail.
Yeah.
It really brings some flavors forward out of the gin that just complements the gin so well. Big fan. All right, so let's get that out of the way. Now we're going to add a 1/4 ounce of Demerara simple syrup. Now, depending upon how sweet you like things, you could add up to a 1/2 ounce. I think it gets a little sweet at that point. So if you want to go somewhere between the two, that's fine. I like it to be a little bit more spirit forward, so I'm only going with a 1/4 ounce of Demerara simple syrup.
Okay.
Next, I'm going to add 2 drops of cardamom bitters that I got from our friends at Dashfire. Because cardamom plays so well with the citrus notes that are in gin. And then I'm going to add 2 ounces of orange bitters. In this case, I've got bitters from Bitter Cube, but I think
I love this. It's like a little magic potion you're making right now.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Well, now we're getting into the saline solution. And I'm on the bus now. I am loving me
Yes.
some saline. Well, I shouldn't say saline. It's more of a salt solution, 80-20. So 80% water, 20% salt. And if you want to make, so look, 80 grams water, 20 grams salt. If you don't have the ability to measure grams, like 1.5 ounces, you know, of salt to, you know, I don't know, or just mix it how you want, or sprinkle a little salt in there. All right, so I'm just going to do 2 drops of the saline solution. Okay, and then I'm going to give it a little stir with my bar spoon stirring device here, and I'm just going to kind of get it nice and diluted because it's a little strong at first, right? If you don't mix it in the mixing glass first to dilute it, and you're making it in the glass, but this drink just gets more and more beautiful as the ice continues to melt and as you enjoy the drink.
Well, and I saw someone when I was in Europe, they actually held the glass with both hands. And
That's a good idea.
They like rested it there for a little bit and then they mixed it again if you want that extra dilution. I thought that was a cool tip.
That's a good idea. Yeah. And then I'm going to take my grapefruit peel here and just kind of made a nice little pretty grapefruit peel, curl it, give it a little expression over the glass, rub the glass up and down the side like Caitlin Stewart likes to do, just so I can smell the grapefruit when I drink it.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. That is...
Yum.
Man, that's good. Excuse me, I went down the wrong pipe. It's so good. That is such a lovely drink and a great way to experience your gin in a way that you might not have normally thought. So here it is, my Old Tom gin old fashioned, and it just gets better as it sits in the glass. So
I bet you could have a lot of fun with this too, whether it's the different style of gin, maybe you want different flavors. Even with Brad, you had a couple of different drops of things in there. I bet you could switch that up. The gin almost seems more versatile.
Yeah, you could use really all kinds of different gins. Like a Plymouth gin would go good in here. A London Dry gin would go good in here. And then like play with the bitters. Go out and get some fun flavors. And what you want to do is, you know that gin's often going to have like some citrus notes, maybe some earthy notes. It's going to have, juniper could be present, obviously, depending upon what kind of gin you get, how pronounced that might be. You could have floral notes in there, depending on what type of gin you get. But think about the notes in the gin that you're purchasing or you want to use, and what kinds of other aromatics might complement that, right? So orange, and cardamom, and you've got grapefruit bitters would be delicious in here. So there's a lot of room to play with this old fashioned. Yep.
Well, yum. Okay, so I have my cocktail, my old fashioned, to play with yours. We're not doing gin, sadly, but what we are going to use, and my recipe is a Fernet old fashioned, but I almost want to go so far as to say this is more of like an Amaro old fashioned. When I originally was writing the recipe, I really wanted to use Chenar. I have two, as most know, I have two different cocktail spots, one at my personal house and one at the office. And my Chenar's at the other address. So I'm like, okay, one of the other recipes out there is, it's called a Toronto. And it
Ooh.
is served up, which I think is kind of a bold choice because Fernet is very strong. So I am going to serve mine over a cube because I do want that dilution. But both Fernet, Beauchenard are Amaros. So if you wanted to, maybe you don't like the black licorice, these really strong, dark Amaro flavors. Maybe you want to go for something a little bit lighter, like an Amaro Nonino. You can do that. That's why I don't want to put myself in a box by saying this is just a Fernet old fashioned. I'm saying this is an Amaro. So you could play with this.
Sweet.
So,
all right.
Yeah. And
Curious.
you
have me
Come
curious.
on. Okay. So I have my rock in my glass. I'm going to put that off to the side because I am going to mix mine. So I'm going to add ice to my mixing glass.
All right.
Okay.
Nice
And
delivery.
then, thank you. I'm going to add in 2 ounces of rye whiskey.
Okay. I like it. I like where your head's at here, Jules.
Right?
2 ounces. Bada bing, bada
2
boom.
ounces.
How you doing?
Then we're going to do a 1/2 ounce of our Fernet.
Yeah, and it's interesting is that you don't like. I always think of Fernet, and it's like, oh, it's Fernet Branca, or it's not. And there's so many Fernets out there, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so interesting. The Amaro category, it's slightly overwhelming, but it's fun because each one has their own unique flavor based on the
Totally.
region and things like that. So we'll have to do an Amaro episode, Brad.
Dude, when we go to
least
Italy,
raise the service.
we're gonna have an Amaro. We're doing something with the Amaros when we're down there.
Yes. Okay. 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. Now, what I would do if I'm using a lighter Amaro, that usually means it's sweeter. So I would do a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup to a 1/2 ounce of Amaro Nonino. If you're using Chenar or Fernet, I would still do that equal ratio because you're going to want that balance with the sweetness. But some of the Amaros are sweeter than others. So know what you're playing with. So from there, 2 dashes of just your good old aromatic bitters. Okay, and then we're going to just stir this together. I can already smell this. Okay.
Good stirring.
My rock. An old fashioned is my rock. Beautiful, perfect garnish with fresh citrus or dehydrated citrus wheel. I like to put, when I have a clear cube, I mean, come on, is there anything
Yeah,
better?
right on top. Especially if it's a nice, perfectly square, clear cube like that. Oh my gosh, yeah. Here you go. Cheers.
And there you go.
Man, that
Cheers.
was good. Cheers, cheers, cheers.
Okay.
Yeah. How's yours?
It's very herbaceous. You'd be surprised. You have 2 ounces of rye whiskey in there, but it doesn't taste hot. It
That's
just
nice.
tastes really nice, really balanced, not too syrupy. Because I feel like sometimes with the Amaros, if you use too much, you kind of get that like back taste of syrup. But it plays so well with that rye. I think it's really balanced, and I'd be interested to try this with a couple more different Amaros. But really and truly, you can use whichever you like. I love Fernet, and I think Fernet in an old fashioned is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, it's kind of it takes the role of the bitter, right, in the old fashioned. So I think that's wonderful, and
I'm telling
it
you,
doesn't always have to come out of a little bitter dabber.
And I stand corrected when I first said an old fashioned is overrated. As I've continued to grow in this space,
You said that like right away. See, like episode one.
Episode one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
It's so funny because now that I'm really exploring, God, the versatility of this cocktail. I know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you
I
were
know.
right. Yeah, you were spot on. You
dude,
literally looked at me
crazy
like I
town.
was a crazy person. Yeah. I'm glad I've come to my senses. But
Yes, Jules. Well, and hopefully those of you out there who say the same thing about gin, it's like, dude, hopefully you realize there's a wide world of gin out there. We'll keep preaching the gin, give gin a chance.
give gin a chance.
Mantra.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, we are saying. All right.
Brad, yeah. Oh, we are saying. So for the next section, we aren't doing the history of the old fashioned. If you are curious about the history, please go back to our first episode. And we also have a second episode at the beginning of season 2. I think we go into the history because you did the Wisconsin Old Fashioned. So I think we go into a little bit of both.
Yep.
So just, study up there. But we're actually taking a unique twist on our history section, and we're going to answer some questions that our listeners sent in.
Yeah. Let's get after those questions and reward the people who so patiently have been waiting for us to answer.
Yes.
So, all right, here we go. Jules.
Yes.
We got some splaining to do.
We do.
Yeah.
That we do.
Yep. We put this Get Featured feature. Can I say that? Sure, I just did. On our Instagram page at the Art of Drinking Podcast on the Instagram. Yeah. And it's like I kind of forgot it was there, and people were asking questions, and I think we kind of called some of this stuff out, but I'd like to be a little bit more deliberate about that.
Yeah.
And call on some of the past questions that people have asked of us. And then Jules, you did a great job of the other day of putting up kind of a new Get Featured, because for whatever reason you'd tap on it and it would disappear and you couldn't actually write the question you wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And so,
and which, by the way, Brad, we do have more on this one. I just checked.
I know. Shout out to Kimber Wee and Miss Chrissy 719, and I know I'm butchering this, but it's Carastol.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's super awesome that you guys jumped right in there right when this got posted up. So please, if you're listening to this, you want to hear us do an episode on a certain topic, or you have a question that we can answer, like, ask there, and we'll answer it here in most cases. And I know for sure we'll answer it on the Instagram page. And then, Jules, you might even kind of throw it up on your @JoinJules story, right? Or am I over? Okay, good.
No, totally.
Cool.
And I also think, we love the tips, but maybe the tip section is a good place to make sure we get to all the questions. So we'll maybe add those in there too. But I think this is really fun to interact, even though we're doing the podcast.
So, the history section's not going anywhere. It's just I wanted to use this time today, since we've talked about the old fashioned in the past, just to kind of talk about some of these questions. And so we'll get to a couple of them today, and we'll continue to answer these throughout the season. And hopefully you continue to engage and ask us questions, because, man, like, obviously we want to be talking about the stuff you're interested in. So
yeah. Okay, so Brad, what's our first question?
All right, this came from Biddy Tut. Tut. I like that name. So, I'm recently finding out I like gin. What are some of the drinks I should try?
Well, are you in luck?
Yeah, totally. So, obviously, look, try the gin old fashioned, right? We just talked about it, and you're going to love that no matter what gin you've used, in my humble opinion. But also, here's, we talked about the G&T, I think, in the first season as well. And the Spanish gin and tonic, which just basically takes a gin and tonic and adds aromatics to it, like next levels the gin and tonic. And so what that means is, so take your gin and tonic and find some really good tonic for starters. And then go out and get juniper berries, get some peppercorns. You can get white, you can get red, you can get black, you can get pink. And you can get some rosemary if you want, and you want citrus peels, so lime peel or a lime wheel if you want, lemon peel, grapefruit peel, a grapefruit slice, like, kind of a quarter of a slice if you want to put it in there, and add this stuff to your gin and tonic. And, again, match kind of flavors up what speaks to you. What have you seen on a menu before? Like, what does citrus seem to go with? And that really levels up your gin and tonic, and you are going to just be in love with that. You're going to drink that all summer long. I promise you.
And Brad, can I also share a tip?
Please.
I know there's a lot of people like myself that sometimes stays away from a gin and tonic, because if you're ordering at a bar or something, it's so tonic heavy sometimes and so sweet depending on the one. So tonic. I have a tip. You can split this with club soda, or a very one of my favorite right now is
that's
like
called a Sonic soda and tonic.
Hey, wait, really?
Yeah, gin. Yeah.
Oh, dang it!
Sonic.
I thought it was original. No, but I thought I had a leg up on everybody. But I will say, splitting it, you still get that effervescence, and you still get that quinine flavor that you like from the tonic, but it's not as overbearing. I feel like.
Yep.
And
Totally.
you can probably, I feel like you taste the gin. Maybe it's placebo, but I feel like you taste the gin a little bit better too.
Yeah, I mean,
Depending.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I oftentimes, like, if I order any kind of like ginger ale in a drink, or
Yeah.
say I'm having a 7-7, talking about
Hey.
old school,
Yeah.
I'll ask for it to be pressed, which means it's half soda water, half whatever that
Yeah.
carbonated beverage is that's going in there.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's a good call.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are two. And Brad,
Those are
I
two.
know you
All
got
right.
more. Come on.
Oh my God. All right. So we talked about the Clover Club.
Such a classic.
This
is such a classic.
A good
Yeah.
drink. I would say, hey, look, classic gin cocktail, and one we haven't talked about yet, but we're gonna.
I'm so surprised by that.
I know this is my signature cocktail too. Like, I can't believe we haven't talked about this, but the Aviation.
Yeah.
The Aviation is such an elegant cocktail. It uses a little creme de
people
violet.
hate it. There are
Who?
real
Oh,
aviation
okay.
haters out there.
If they hate it, here's why. Because wherever they had it, somebody like put way too much creme de violet in there,
Yep.
and it just literally tastes like grandmother's perfume. I was
Totally.
at a bar here locally, real local to me, and I got an Aviation, and it came out purple. And I'm like, dude,
Oh no.
like, I'm all about the Minnesota Vikings here, but that's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not
like unless you're
supposed to be
using
purple.
Empress, 19.
Ugh,
Yeah.
Not even,
I know.
Like,
I know.
the Aviation should be the color of the sky, right?
Yeah.
Why it's called an Aviation. We'll talk about that one day. Another great one is a Singapore Sling.
We've covered that.
We covered the Singapore Sling. Go back. That one's got like kind of like a lot of things in it, but I love the Singapore Sling.
Yeah. Good
And
challenge
look,
cocktail.
if you're really into the flavor of gin, do a gin Ricky. That's just a gin highball, right? With a little lime juice. It's like a ranch water with gin instead of tequila. So
Yeah.
that's a great cocktail too. There are literally hundreds of cocktails that you could drink that have gin in them. Those are some of my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, also most obvious is a gin
What?
martini.
Oh, gin martini. Oh my God. How did I forget the gin martini?
Yeah, well, because if somebody's just getting into gin, it might be too aggressive. But
be,
it's a great way to taste different styles of gin and kind of understand the gin category a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I will
Ice
say,
cold
Brad,
gin. Yep.
there are two that you didn't say that I would say are high on my list.
Okay. I already know.
Gotta have a Negroni. You gotta
There you
have
go.
a Negroni.
Yeah.
I understand it's a bit aggressive and bitter for people, but if you like bitter, you like Campari, oh my God, this is one of my favorite gin cocktails.
Yeah.
But also easy, shaken, and I would say this style of cocktail should be on your cocktail menu for your bar cart. Bee's Knees.
Oh, duh. Yeah. Of course.
Classic.
That's a great cocktail. Yeah. That's a gin sour with honey syrup.
Yep.
So,
yep.
instead of
really
simple syrup.
easy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Citrus
Good call out.
forward. So, but I think those are great. I think if you start with those and adventure there, you're on a pretty good track. I wouldn't recommend in one time, but space it out.
Well, that depends on your tolerance. But I would say that look, most of those, like the Bee's Knees, the Negroni, we talked about the Singapore Sling, Clover Club, Gin and Tonic. Like, we've talked about these in previous episodes, so go back and listen to those episodes too. They'd be good kind of background too for while you're making the drink.
Yeah.
All right. So, next question comes from J May 225.
Okay.
What are the 3 drinks I should serve guests? Now, we just obviously went through a laundry list of drinks. So, my question to you, J May, is, are you looking to put some effort in, or are you looking for this just to be kind of minimal effort and you can just quickly put these drinks out? Because if it's the latter and you just want to quickly put drinks out, old fashioned, okay? I mean, and like we talked about a gin old fashioned today, right? You could literally do all kinds of different old fashions. You could do an aquavit old fashioned. You could do a tequila old fashioned.
Don't
you
get
could
this
do
guy started.
Oh my God. And then all you need is, again, just like a variety of different bitters, right? If you want to do a tequila old fashioned or a mezcal old fashioned, go get some mole bitters, right? So there's a lot of things you could do there. Play with your simple syrups. If you wanted to make a, kind of like a house special old fashioned, you can make cinnamon simple syrups, ginger simple syrups, banana simple syrups, like cherry, like grenadine, right, is one. And then you could do a strawberry simple syrup. There's all kinds of different simple syrups you could do. And just make old fashions, right? Just kind of let people know that, hey, look, it's 2 ounces of spirit, it's a quarter to a half ounce of sweet, whatever that simple syrup is that you want to use.
Yep.
A couple of dashes of bitters, and stir in your glass over ice, and know that it's going to kind of mellow out as time goes on. That's a great cocktail to make. Another great one to make is a Sazerac. Very close to an old fashioned. Incorporates a little absinthe in there and Peychaud's bitters. That's a fun cocktail to make. We talked about that in a previous episode. You could also do gin and tonics. We talked about a gin and tonic, or highballs. Highballs are like so fun too.
Underrated too.
Totally underrated. If you've got some really kind of quality spirits out there, or even just kind of, spirits that you could drink them neat, they're probably going to be really great in a highball too, because the soda water kind of cuts it back a little bit, so it's not so hot going down. Like think of scotch and soda, right? Whiskey soda. Those are great. Gin Ricky is another, highball right? Yeah. Ranch water is another great one. It's just it's tequila, soda water, and lime juice. Those are all great ideas. If you want to put a little effort in, then, make a daiquiri. It's super easy to make.
I
it's
would
3
say
ingredients.
a daiquiri. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
We
well,
talked
and
about the daiquiri.
You can change the syrups on that. I mean, Brad, I know you recently did it with the banana syrup too. I mean, you can just have so much fun with that.
So much fun with the daiquiri.
Well,
you can do
and
a lot of
plus,
different things with the daiquiri.
That's in the sour family, right? So you can do, switch out the rum for bourbon and switch out the lime for lemon, and you have whiskey sour, right?
Exactly. Yep. 100%. And if you wanted to take it, you want to level it up. Okay. So let's do gin, lemon juice, and simple syrup. So we've got that gin sour, right?
Yep.
And now if you shake that up and add that to a flute glass and add some champagne on top, voila, you have a French 75.
75.
We also covered that drink in a previous episode. That's a fantastic drink to make, and that really looks posh. And then, while you're at it, you're making sours, go ahead and make a margarita. Just get a little Cointreau or some triple sec and just add that into your tequila, lime juice, simple syrup. Cointreau meets all of that, and boom, suddenly you got a margarita. And that's something you could totally pour on the rocks. You don't need like a special glass for a margarita.
Well, and I would say it's one that, if you're having guests over, make homemade juices, or teas. Make a Jamaica tea, or make a blood orange, squeeze some fresh blood orange juice. And you can really have fun with the flavors. I mean, coconut margarita, mango margarita. You can really start to play and have fun. I like, if I have guests over, having a margarita bar, right? Like, pick your flavor. But that's if you want to get crazy, But again,
if
Brad,
you want to be behind the bar. Right.
So it just depends.
And then just have your garnishes ready, right? Like I kind of pre-peel oranges and, the stripes, right? I get a nice Y peeler and start to do some peels around the orange or the lemon or the lime, or I just do slices. And you're good to go. All right, next one, and I think this will be the last one we'll do because of time.
Yeah.
The bookworm, the blonde bookworm. She's actually asked a couple, and I really appreciate the engagement that she puts forward. So, easy substitutes for a bar on a budget. And this is a great question. Okay. If you can find it, Buffalo Trace, great bourbon to get. It's not that expensive. And if you can't find it, Bullet bourbon.
I was going to say Bullet, yeah.
Yep. Super easy to get. Bullet Rye is a good rye to complement that. They're easy mixers. You can kind of drink them on their own if you want. But it's a great mixing bourbon and mixing rye. Gordon's Gin comes in a plastic bottle. I know we've warned you about plastic bottles before. Gordon's is the exception.
It is,
It's super, super easy to mix. Not a big fan of it straight, but mixed in a cocktail, and if that cocktail is cold, it's a good deal.
Yeah.
Rum, I'd love to give you something other than, I'd love to give you some variety here, but Bacardi, Bacardi Silver, Bacardi Superior is super, super easy to drink in a daiquiri. Again, I'm not sure I would really drink it straight. It doesn't like appeal to me straight.
Well, right. I mean, if you're making
mixer.
sweet tropical drinks, maybe opt for something like this. Maybe don't opt for, the nicer bottle. Save the nicer bottle for sipping, and you're going to invest it on an old-fashioned style rum drink, right?
I was at my friend's backyard bar, which I think I've talked to you about Cheryl and Eric before, in their backyard bar. And dude, next time you're in town, you've got to come over the summer. Like, their backyard bar is like phenomenal. It needs to be in a magazine. It's so much fun.
That's awesome.
They threw me behind the bar like when we started doing this podcast, and I was like, oh God, and I panicked a little bit, but I saw Bacardi, I saw lime juice, and I saw simple syrup. I was like, I got you. And I was whipping out daiquiris, and people were like, oh my God. And I'm
That's
like, it's
awesome.
just Bacardi.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Especially if you're making it
easy.
for a crowd, right? Like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God, totally.
yeah. But you don't want to get a bad rum. So I feel like that is, you know, you're making a couple, you're not doing rum old fashions. Yeah, it'll work.
Yeah. This isn't one you kind of want to do on your own. In El Dorado, 12-year, if you want like an aged rum, that's a good cheapie to add into for your tiki cocktails and stuff. So, and I think I've actually even sipped on El Dorado. It's good. It'll do in a pinch. Then let's talk about vodka. All right.
Okay.
So look. I always want to pronounce this right. Luksu Sova. Luksu Sova. It's spelled Luksusowa. It is such a budget deal, but I'm telling you, this vodka is fantastic.
Really?
You could drink it in a martini as long as you keep that sucker small and cold. Like if the minute that starts to warm up, it's like, okay, all right, it's starting to show up here. But great in mixed cocktails. Really great in mixed cocktails or super chilled. Getting on to tequila, I would say Cimarron tequila. They do a wonderful job on both the Reposado and the Blanco. It punches way above its price point. Super approachable. Like that's one of my favorites. I think you've got one too, right?
Yeah, Tapatio is another one. They're distilled at the same place as El Tesoro, I believe. It may have changed. I don't think so, but I'm pretty sure they're distilled the same distillery.
Cool.
And then another one that I feel like is very reasonably priced is the Del Maguey Vita. You can get it at like Trader Joe's, and that's a mezcal that I feel like is very versatile, and you can use
mezcal.
it. Yeah. So that I would say those are my two additions there. And again, the one thing I will say, and
you're not
maybe
wrong.
we've talked about
You're
it
not
before,
wrong.
Costco just has this level of standard that they put themselves on.
They really do. Yeah.
I mean, that's the vodka I would recommend. Go to Costco. I mean, there is
totally.
something to be said about their spirits.
Yeah. If you have a Costco membership, just go shopping there.
Okay, wait. Fun fact. If you're just buying alcohol from Costco, you don't need a Costco membership. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
I know. Yeah. So don't let it stop you.
Yeah. Rumor has it that they like negotiate with kind of good brands, and they if their Kirkland brand is on a bottle, they really want that to be a quality product because they want people to buy it. And like, who's going to argue that? And Costco, with the buying power that they have, I'm sure is. They can get some pretty good deals on.
Well, didn't they say like their Kirkland vodka is distilled like Grey Goose or something like that?
Something like that.
There's rumors.
Yeah. There's rumors. I'm sure there's actually fact out there too, but that's what I've seen, and I honestly can tell you that whenever I've had Costco brand stuff, it's like, yeah, that works for me. It's not sexy on your bar, but works in your glass.
Totally. Yeah, put it in a decanter if you really want to spruce it up and you're on a budget. Yeah. I would say Costco is for sure the way to go. Also, if you're buying spirits like gin, vodka, even their bourbon, I mean, it's not going to go bad. So even though you're like, really, this big bottle of vodka, I'm never going to drink this much. It's like, yeah, you will.
Yeah, you will. Yeah,
not right away.
It'll go to use.
So
yeah.
Costco's great.
Well, that's. I think that's all that we should do, right? Like, let's
was
wrap
fun,
it up.
though.
Yeah, I know. Like, and I think every episode we should call out at least one of these, right?
I agree.
And then, like I said, we'll still do the history section, but we'll call out something that you guys are asking, and then we'll be sure to answer online as well. So, thanks for the questions. Keep them coming, and thanks for listening. Let's get on to the tips.
Our tip section, which I always take by the horns, but it's funny because Brad, I think you actually were the one, I believe, who showed me Fernet first. I don't think I really knew what it was, and I think we had it. I think we were outside. I think all the guys were smoking stogies, and I think you were passing around little shooter glasses to sip on some Fernet. And I tried it, and I remember being like, "Wait, this is really good." So I wanted to talk about it.
You are in a small category of people, because nothing on Fernet, right? But people who are new to it, it's gonna like you're like, whoa, that's really strong. Like you got to know what you're getting into there. And so all I'm gonna say too, we say give gin a chance, give Fernet a chance. If anything, it's great medicine after a big rich meal.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it gets in there and it kung fu fights all that stuff in your stomach and helps you digest.
Totally.
So, big fan.
And we'll talk about it too. So one of the tips I have is the flavor profile of Fernet. And I bring this up first because I think it goes in line with why I liked it so much. Its flavor profile is black licorice or unsweetened Jägermeister. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I liked it is because when I first started drinking, Jägermeister, for God knows what reason, was my go-to. That, I think he
Damn, Jules.
Yeah, no, I think he did
That's
Jaeger
an advanced palate.
No, Brad, Jägermeister and Red Bull? I don't know if you'd call that advanced. But that was
sounds like college.
That's a thing. Yeah, there's a name for that, but that was my drink of choice was Jaeger. So it tastes like Jägermeister, but Jägermeister is the little baby brother. Fernet is like the elevated grandfather.
Yeah. And by the way, you're thinking of the drink called the Jaeger bomb.
Jaeger bomb.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I am so glad I haven't done that in many, many years. So that's the flavor profile of Fernet. I know a lot of people are so curious when they hear Fernet. They're like, what does that even taste like? So know what it tastes like first and foremost, because if you don't like the flavor of black licorice, be careful. If somebody hands this to you and doesn't tell you, like, just try it, just now you know they're messing with you. It's an aggressive flavor. However, it has a bitter, dry complexity, which is fantastic, especially when you're mixing it in a cocktail like this old fashioned. It can really be a player of flavor to your benefit. You don't need a whole lot. A little goes a long way. So that's the flavor profile of Fernet. Now, Fernet. It is a type of Amaro. Amaro, I will say this again, Amaro in Italian means bitter. So Fernet is bitter. So Fernet is a bitter Amaro that is a digestif. Brad, you said at the beginning of the tip section, this is what you drink at the end of your meal to help digest all the food.
Yeah.
And it works. P.S.
It does. It works.
Yeah.
An ounce and a half goes a long way at the end of your meal. You don't pour a big, 2 gorilla fingers in your scotch glass if you're not used to drinking Fernet. And I would honestly say, Jules, like, if you want to get into Fernet and expand your palate, and I feel like it's like exercise, right? Because the first time you try these things, you're like, oh, that's really hard. I don't know if I like it. But if you want to broaden your horizons, like, I would start with getting a bottle of Fernet and just having a little bit after a heavy meal, right? Like Amy made meatloaf tonight. I might have a little Fernet after the meatloaf, right?
Yeah.
And you will become accustomed to it. And I would say that it even kind of opens gateways for you
I would
to
agree.
other bitter style cocktails like a Negroni, right? And so you start to adjust your palate for this stuff. But if you think about it like, this is medicine, I'm just going to take this, I want to feel better, you're spot on, and you will feel better.
Yeah. And I would challenge you, if you're not familiar with Fernet, to really and truly try it in this cocktail, because it's just such a nice balance. The one other thing I will add is this Fernet is typically made in Italy, and it's made in Milan with a variety of herbs, spices, botanicals. So, the Amaro category, that is the standard, but it's a matter of what is that, right? So play with the Amaro category. Fernet is like the extreme side, right? You're going really far right. And then you go to the far left where you have your nice and sweet Aperol, right? So just play with that level, see what you like, but I challenge you to try Fernet. And so you may be wondering, how should I try Fernet? Well, like I've said before, you can drink it in the old fashioned, but a Fernet and Coke is classic. People
Argentina,
go for that.
baby, yeah.
Fernet and soda is another great way, I think, personally, especially if you think it's a little bit harsh to just sip on Fernet after dinner. I think having that with a little bit of soda water is really great. I've actually, and I think it was at the Dead Rabbits bar in New York.
Okay.
And they made a flip with Fernet, which was
Ooh.
like the whole egg. It was like this creamy, delicious, spice-forward dessert cocktail.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, use the spices, use the flavor to your advantage. Don't let it scare you off because it has such a distinct, fun flavor profile that you can use. So I challenge you to go out and buy Fernet this week.
Buy Fernet. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I love it. Expanding horizons here, Jules. That's what we do.
What can I say?
Let's get out of here.